Welcome back to Small Caps, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stevenson. Today I'm talking to David Paterson. He's the CEO of Latrobe Magnesium. ASX code is LMG. Last time I spoke to David was the end of June. Now, Latrobe Magnesium, as the name suggests, is in the magnesium market. Magnesium market at the moment is predominantly supplied by China, but Latrobe Magnesium are going to be changing that a little bit, and it's a very interesting process that David Paterson and his team have got together. Lots has happened since we last spoke, and so I'm going to unpack a little bit of where they're at, where they're going, and the market, and why this is a really, really important company and what they're doing in the process of getting magnesium from where they're getting it from. So, David, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming back onto Small Caps.
Morning, Kerry. It's great to be here.
David, for those that don't understand, can you just explain Latrobe Magnesium? Obviously, the product is magnesium, but where does it come from and what's the process that makes you quite unique?
Okay. Basically, in brown coal fly ash, which is a different chemistry to black coal fly ash, traditionally up to 50% can be a mag oxide and a calcium oxide. In the fly ash, and what we do is effectively we have our own unique hydromet technology, which is patented worldwide, that allows us to extract the magnesium, also the calcium, which we make into a cement, and then the rest of the material we also use. So we've got 100% recyclable material. So we do that with fly ash, and what we found also is we're able to use the same process for treating ferro-nickel slag. So ferro-nickel slag is effectively what comes out of the back of a ferro-nickel smelter plant for nickel, making nickel, and it contains 33% mag oxide and 55% silica oxide. So what we do with those two materials, we make our mag as normal, and with the silica we make an amorphous silica, which is a very good binding material for used in cement to pick it up, to pick up the cement quicker and stronger. So we make our cement material as well because that's in our process. So we're basically converting two waste streams into and recycling 100% of them into valuable products, and we don't generate any waste.
You don't generate any waste at all?
No, we use it all.
What's been happening in the past with the fly ash and the slag heaps that you talk about?
Basically, they've just been going to landfill and ash dams, so they're just building up.
Wow.
You know, in the valley, that's been happening. In the Latrobe Valley, that's been happening for 40 to 50 years. There is no use for the fly ash. Like a lot of people say, well, they use black coal as a binder or a filler in cement. That's an aluminosilica, whereas this is calcium and magnesium oxides, as I mentioned earlier. And you can't use it in cement if you have more than 4% mag oxide, because mag oxide will expand over time, and it's like a concrete cancer. So they've never been able to use the brown coal before. They've always tried and looked at different ways. But now when we take it all out, we end up with about 0.5% to 1%, because we want all the mag out into our ingots or our alloys, as we'll progress into. But we need all that out, otherwise you'll have that same expansion problem. So that's why you haven't been able to use it. They use the fine black coal fly ash in Queensland and in the Hunter Valley, mainly in New South Wales, and they use that as they can use up to 25% with cement to make concrete.
So the magnesium market at the moment, first of all, what is magnesium used for, and where is the market at the moment? Do we have a market in Australia for magnesium? Not at all.
Do we have a market? Yes. There's because we make aluminium, there is and we make some rolling stock. We make cans. There always is a requirement in cans and sheet metal. We don't make sheet metal, but we make cans. There's always a requirement to have up to 5% of mag in that to strengthen them, because otherwise, when cans first came out, you could just rip them So there is a requirement. We've been approached by, of course, one of those players one of those people that make the aluminium to provide them with magnesium.
Because currently they get that from China, is that correct?
Correct. All is imported. China is nearly up to 90% now of magnesium. It's grown from about 85 to 90. There is no supplier in Japan. The one supplier in the USA is actually going under capital renovations, I should say, and they've been up for over a year. So there's been no supplier in the USA. There is no supplier in the EU. And of course, none in Australia. All those areas, all those major countries, it's a critical mineral, described as such within the top 25. And, for Germany, as Angela Merkel said last year before she retired, if they don't have mag, they can't make cars.
Absolutely, they cannot make cars. I want to know then, where are you at in this process? Because this is not something, and I was talking to somebody over the weekend saying, you just don't turn on a tap and bring out copper. It's the same with magnesium. You just don't turn on the tap. So where is Latrobe Magnesium at the moment? You've got the process, worldwide patent, you know it works, but what are the next steps? What are the things that shareholders/investors need to say, okay, they've moved on quite a fair way?
Yep. So we put all that together. We're probably about half the way through building our demonstration plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the demonstration plan is there to prove that our hydromet process works and it extracts the materials properly. That's the whole purpose of the 1,000-ton demonstration plan. Mm-hmm. Then once we've proven that, demonstration plan's up in June of this year.
No, June of next year.
Next year. Yeah. 2023. We've been able to keep that on time, even with all the supply chain issues, because we did order our major long lead time and big items back in June, July. So we've been able to keep that to our schedule, if you like. That was the Tenova spray roaster, and also we're using major furnaces for the furnaces. They're out of Melbourne. So, we've looked to try and cut down all those cost inflation issues, also keeping it local as much as we can. We've just issued the civil construction works for the site. That's gone to a local yet again. So we're very much trying to keep it local, so we get over all supply issues too. I mean, it works for us to get over the supply issues. Yeah. So demonstration plant works. Then we go to our 10,000 ton, which we're talking about a commercial scale plant that's 100 million of cost capex, and we get that up and operational by December 24. We have enough area. We have our land at 320 Tramway Road, which is a brownfield site, which is all ready to go now and insert our smaller demonstration plant, and we'd build the 10,000 plant on the same site. So it's just, we've got permission. We actually have an EPA and a local government permission for 3,000 tonnes. We just have to take that up to 10,000 tonnes and prove that our emissions of the demo plant will probably be less than what we've given them previously. So that's a natural progression for the valley. And then we look at the bigger plant. Once that's up and operational, which is in 2025, we'd start to build that plant. That plant will be offshore, and it actually uses ferro-nickel slag, as I mentioned earlier.
Let's just go back to so the 1,000 is the pilot plant. That's June 23. Then you go up to the 10,000 plant. You've got the land, you've got the site. There's no problems there. And this 10,000 plant will be ready December 24.
Correct.
Cost 100 million. Give us the sort of the other numbers around that. If it's going to cost 100 mil, what's it going to make? What are the numbers looking like?
Yeah, it looks like it'll make 110 mil in revenue and about 42 million in EBITDA. That's based on, we take a position of 3,500 US. That's the mag selling price, and of course it has been a lot higher than that. And it's tracking higher than that now. It's basically in the last quarter, it started to come back to normal. if you like, but it's 3.5 to 4,000 at the moment. So we take a conservative view at 3.5 for our long-term planning, because that's the advice that we receive from some specialists as well as our own.
With that plan at 10,000, that's 10,000 per annum. If you've got product, you just keep it going. Are we talking 10 years, 20 years? What's that? We used to call it the life of mine, but it's not really a mine. The life of slag.
The life of fly ash. Basically, your lawn will make, from now to closure time, sufficient fly ash for us to produce 10,000 tonnes for 20 years. So they have of course, they've been operating for 50 odd years. So they have a landfill. We're just doing work on that landfill now to determine whether we want to make it bigger or not. So there's they in the landfill they put aside at least 10 million tonnes. So we wouldn't mind that a lot, because the landfill has to be stable and everything else, because it's half a hill.
Right.
But we're doing work on that now to determine exactly whether we want to increase that 10. The 10 is effectively a no-brainer, I always say, because it's just treating the ash that they're making from now to closure time.
That would be my next question. Can you go up from 10,000? Could you go 20,000, 30,000, or is 10,000 your max on that particular one?
We could. It'll just be a decision at the time. We could go to 20. We could, if then we got hold of the Hazelwood ash dam. There's another 5 million tonnes we know of in the Hazelwood ash dam, but that would probably have to be in government hands and not in Engie's hands, because we've had not disagreements. We've had issues with it before.
You spoke earlier about roasters, furnaces, and when I hear those words, I'm like, that sounds like a lot of energy. And we all know that right now there is an energy crisis and there's some challenges there. Where's your energy going to come from to get this process underway?
Well, at the moment it's just coming off the grid, but what we're looking to do is there is a solar farm that's getting built next to us, where we've had discussions with them, and literally 500 metres away from us.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, when I say it's close, it's close. We can plug it in, effectively, plug into them. And there are batteries that are being built. Engie are building a 150 megawatt battery now, and your lawn, as part of the closure in 2026, are going to build, I think, a 350 megawatt battery, both of which are very close to us. So, and that's to look at renewables. There's also Star of the Sea, which is a wind farm that's been talked about for a long time, but it's down off Longford in the Bass, effectively not Bass Strait, but just around the corner. Yeah. You're talking 2.5 gigawatts of power there, which will come into the grid. You've seen recently with the Labor government have given funding for two things. The federal government, they've given funding for the extension of the grid to Longford, and also they've looked at bringing in hydropower from Tasmania. So hydropower for us would be ideal, because it's 24/7 and it goes 24/7. So we have the beauty about where we are in the Latrobe Valley is, of course, that used to supply 80% of Victoria's power, 20% of Australia's power. So the grid is there. So that's why people are starting to look at things close to it, which they can feed into that grid, because then they don't have to build their own, which is just too costly. Yeah. So, we see it now as becoming a bit of a hub for the renewable sector. There's a hydrogen plant down the road. So we're looking with people like Tenova, we're looking at using hydrogen even in the future. So we're looking our process treats mag oxides. Because of the feedstock, it treats oxides and not carbonates. So if you talk about a magnesium, normally you make it from dolomite, that's MgCO3. If we use MgO, all of a sudden the first thing that happens when you put it into your plant is the CO2 goes up the stack. Right? So if I'm producing 1 tonne in China, I need 10 tonnes of dolomite. So I'm producing 10 tonnes of CO2. that gives us an automatic 10-ton advantage of CO2 emissions because we don't have it in the feedstock. It's all about the feedstock. We don't have it in this. If you make cement, once again, you make it out of limestone, which is CaCO3.
Yeah.
We have CaO. So once
again,
again,
no
carbon emissions. So all of a sudden you're making green cement and it's no carbon emissions. So, the beauty about the process is yes, it's taken us a long time to perfect it, but it has these great advantages to it.
Are you pretty excited, David? I'm just sort of sitting here listening to the fact that this has got no carbon emissions, and
we've still got carbon emissions because we use gas.
What's that?
We still use gas. We still have carbon emissions because we use gas.
Okay.
And if we can get rid of gas, no carbon emissions. So if we go to renewables, no carbon emissions.
How confident are you about this pilot plant, which is going to be June of next year? You know what, David, it's going to come around like that.
It is.
How confident are you that that's going to get underway and that process, once proven, will get everybody pretty excited about going to the next level?
I think that's what everyone's looking at and saying, okay, it's a new process, and in the mining business, you've got to go through that proving up process and then go to your commercial stage. And I think everyone's looking at that, and that's what the major institutions we've spoken to are. At industry general, we've been approached by a lot of people because of the 10,000 ton plan about supplying them, and we're talking about the big people, big users worldwide of mags. So, and we've, as I said, been approached by just about all of them. That's why we brought forward this 100,000 ton plan, to be able to satisfy them, even though that's not until once you get the 10,000 ton up in 24, we wouldn't start it till 25. But when you said it's 6 months to finish in building the demo plant, it takes a long time to do your PFSs and then your bankable feasibility, and then you've got to put the rest in place. So when we say 22 to 25, I don't think you can do it any quicker.
Right.
And to do it in a proper, sound manner. You've proven each stage, and therefore, by the time we're building the big plant in 25, we've had the demo plant working since 23 for a good 2.5 years. So that's not a problem. And then you've got the commercial plant probably working for 6 months to 12 months. So it's just a proper way of progression and expanding properly without taking additional risks. To answer the first question, though, about we've done a lot of tests from different labs on our process, and we found at one stage we were running 2 labs together. They didn't know. We ran them together. And they proved that we got the same results that we wanted. So that was a great test for us. When we run like a ton of material through, we have to run that through usually in like in 10 different samples. So you look at that repetitive nature coming through the results. So you can see the results are the same. So the process is working. And I can't remember how many countless tests we've done. We've been doing it for 20 years, so it's been quite a few. And the back end stuff with the smelter is all done at CSIRO. So it's all external labs. It's all credible people. And therefore we feel very confident.
I want to know, our audience out there, our beautiful audience out there, they are investors, they're people that are looking at opportunities and saying, all right, where are they at in the process and where's the upside, I guess? We've spoken briefly about 100,000 plant. I'll get to that in a minute. You're well funded. You've got $12.5 million. What I want to know is, what are the milestones that are going to give shareholder value as we progress this as you progress this project?
We see, definitely the completion and the operations of the demo plant, because that automatically flicks straight into our 10,000 ton plant. So we've been speaking to some government instrumentalities that basically control the Critical Minerals Fund, and they're just watching us and they're saying, okay, David, prove that those numbers are right, prove that the numbers in the 10,000 ton is correct, and e.g. the process is correct, and we've got the funding for you to do that.
Oh wow. Okay.
So we've been prior approved by those funds. I don't know if you know, but before the Liberal government got kicked out last September, Morrison approved a $2 billion funding of the Critical Minerals Fund. And that fund is effectively, basically at the moment, mainly rare earths and lithium, because we're big lithium producers in Australia, and of course has not got a magnesium, and magnesium is one of those critical minerals. So they know us well. We've gone through the sort of pre-approval process. It's now a matter of, okay, prove that that demo plant works and you get the results you believe you're going to get. And that's really what it comes down to. That triggers straight into the 10,000 tonne. So it's all about the big milestone, as I see it, is the first one. Of course, the first one works, second one works, then that gets you into the third stage. But it's all about the demo plant. And, you know, when you start talking about what's a number, I mean, we would think 40 million is conservative. So if you just put a 10 times multiple on that, that's 400 million.
Yep.
And effectively, we're traveling at about 120 to 150. Right. 120 to 130 million today. So you can see the upside. That really all springs off the demo plant working, because the rest is what we're putting in place now.
Yeah, just we're running out of time, David. So I want to just briefly touch on the 100,000 tonne per annum plant, which is scheduled for December 27, I think it is. So that's
production,
a little way off.
27, correct.
And is that going to be offshore or onshore? Where's that plant going to be?
Offshore. We've basically had Bechtel do what we announced to the market, is Bechtel do a PFSA study, and that was really to look at locations and see the variations of operating costs and construction costs. We've got to do a bit more work on that before we can announce those numbers in detail, but it's roughly, as we thought, about $1 billion. So we're looking, as I said, at those two locations effectively. The first parameter has to be renewables, so we achieve our zero emissions. So in Saudi, you look at, of course, solar. Malaysia, you look at the Sarawak River and the hydropower of the Sarawak River. So you have first off an energy source, and what we've gathered, it's around about 5 cents a gigajoule versus $1 a gigajoule here at the moment.
Wow!
So massive differences, and availability is the other thing that we looked at. Logistics is always a big important scenario, because when you talk 100,000 tonnes, we're moving 1.5 million tonnes in and over 1 million tonnes out. So it's a logistics exercise as much as anything else. You've got to have great port facilities, both internal, both coming in, going out, and they've got to be reasonable as well. And then if labor's pretty low in both areas as well. So we're looking at those two things. We haven't made a decision yet. We've got to do some further work, both on the plan itself, because there wasn't enough time for Bechtel to finalise what we were hoping. But that work's getting done, and we're also having further negotiations with both parties. But the interest was great, I should say. So we don't think that's going to be an issue from a point of view, but we've got to make a decision where. Then we'll go into what we've talked about is the PFSB, which will be on the location. So that's when you tighten the screws and do a lot more engineering and make sure that all the costing is correct as well. So a bit to do.
A bit to do. Well, clearly a very clever man, ladies and gentlemen, because it's all that sort of science and chemicals and processing that's going into this. David, let's wrap it up into a nice little bow with the 3 reasons that you think right now is a good time for our community to be taking a serious look at Latrobe Magnesium, which ASX code, as I said before, ladies and gentlemen, is LMG. 3 reasons why they should be looking at you right now.
Well, I think the demonstration plant will prove our process works. That will be a very good uplift in our share price, because the others will start to flow. And I think we've got a very sound and competent expansion plan, which, we have a lot of interest from a lot of players and a lot of major users to be part of.
Well, it's a very exciting time for Latrobe Magnesium. David Paterson as CEO, wish you all the best. And June next year, ladies and gentlemen, that demonstration plant will be up and running. And one of the great things is this is a company which is looking to get rid of a lot of waste, not just here in Australia, but around the world. So it's very exciting, especially as we move into this green technology space. So congratulations, David. Last time I spoke to you, but compared to this time, you've come a long way, and we'll look forward to advances in that demo plant. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining me on Small Caps.
Thanks, Gary.